Ever been on the freeway cruising along when suddenly you see brake lights ahead? Your instinct? Hit the brakes. But what if I told you that reaction, one we've all had, could be part of the problem, not the solution?
Traffic check.
Good afternoon, everybody. This traffic report brought to you by KFC. Although the Friday getaway is on, all lanes are open on the 101.
Getting out of Anaheim Hills, East 91, just loading up at the 241. Stays pretty tough into Corona. You get a break after the 71.
Randy Keith will be back in 6 minutes with more traffic then.
Hey, I'm Randy Keith, and welcome back to Mastering the Commute. Today, we're tackling something every driver experiences: brake lights, red lights, and traffic flow. This podcast is all about seeing traffic differently, not just reacting to it, but understanding how it works so you can drive smarter. The key? Traffic moves in waves. But most drivers don't think about that when they slam on the brakes or hit the gas. Today, we'll break down what's happening on the road beyond just your car, because once you start seeing the bigger picture, you'll realize just how much control you actually have over your own commute. When you see brake lights ahead, your natural instinct is to slow down. That's fine, but how you slow down makes all the difference. One sharp brake can cause a chain reaction. Even if you stop in time, the person behind you might slam on their brakes harder, and then the person behind them even more. This creates what traffic engineers call shockwaves, a ripple effect that can last for miles. I saw this all the time when I was reporting from the air over LA's freeways. One car would tap the brakes, and within seconds, a domino effect would spread 5, 10, 20 cars back. This is why traffic can come to a stop with no accident in sight. So how do you avoid contributing to the problem? Look beyond just the car in front of you. Scan at least 5 to 10 cars ahead to anticipate slowdowns. If it's during the day and you can see the shadows of the cars, a lot of times I will look ahead to see the shadows and you can see whether they're moving or not, or when they start moving. Ease off the gas early instead of waiting until the last second to brake. Leave space so you can adjust your speed smoothly. This keeps traffic moving instead of stopping and starting. Here's where things get interesting. You might think the fast lane moves the quickest, right? But have you ever noticed that when traffic gets bad, some lanes stop and start while others keep moving? It's all about constant speed driving. The stop and go lane looks faster because cars dart forward when there's a gap, but then they slam on the brakes again. The constant speed lane might seem slower at first, but it actually flows more smoothly over time. Think of it like a river. If you pour water into a bottle too fast, it splashes back. But if you pour steadily, the flow remains constant. And traffic works the same way. And trust me, I do get it. Sometimes keeping a steady speed frustrates people behind you, or even in your passenger seat. But here's the thing. When traffic starts moving again, the steady speed lane wins every time. This is something we'll break down even further in a future episode, but for now, just try this out. Instead of rushing into gaps, keep a steady pace and see how it feels. Watch the traffic waves ahead and avoid needless braking. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about brake lights, but let's talk about green lights for a second, because this is where drivers waste a ton of time. How many times have you been stuck behind someone who wasn't paying attention when the light turned green? This is a big problem, because every second at a green light adds up. Even a 1-second delay per car can waste minutes across an entire intersection, and that's multiplied during rush hour. Hesitation slows everyone down. The more people creep forward instead of accelerating smoothly, the longer the backup stays in place. And of course, phone distractions make it worse. When someone checks their phone at a red light, they're late to accelerate because they didn't look up in time, and that compounds delays. Now, I'm not saying you should floor it the second the light turns green, but being ready to move is a major key to keeping traffic flowing. So here's the takeaway on this episode of Red Light and Green Light. Traffic moves in waves. Sudden braking creates unnecessary slowdowns. Keeping a constant speed is more effective than chasing gaps. And being ready when the light turns green saves time for everyone. Next time you're on the road, try this out. Notice how traffic reacts when someone brakes suddenly versus when they slow down gradually. Try keeping a steady speed, even if it feels counterintuitive. And when you're at a red light, be ready to go the second it turns green. Now, before we wrap up this episode, I want to turn to some listener feedback and preview some of our future topics. On our YouTube page, Joe in Florida commented on one of our videos about leaving early, how he always leaves early to prevent problems. And honestly, after all of these years and all of my improvement of becoming a better driver or a smarter driver after being an aggressive driver for many, many years. This is still something that I fight with myself about. Many times I will plan to leave the house a half hour before I'm, quote, supposed to, and I end up leaving only 5 or 10 minutes before or right at that time. It's something to be conscious and deliberate about every time I plan a trip. Another friend of mine in Florida shared with me offline that he doesn't like driving at night. And we are both musicians. We generally have to drive at night after midnight per se. And my friend Harry says that he is not doing that anymore. He's had too many bad experiences. He's had too many crazy drivers weaving in and out at late times. So if he does a gig and has to drive home after midnight, he gets a hotel. I don't quite have that same discipline, but I'm working on it. Another conversation about theme parks and the traffic with pedestrians in theme parks and out of theme parks, and then the traffic getting out of the parking lot. So a couple of episodes wrapped in there that are going to be coming up on kind of ancillary traffic topics, not just about freeways. One quick side note, actually something that my wife brought up in case I didn't make it clear on this podcast, because I do talk a lot about my experience as a traffic reporter in LA and in Southern California. But now, and for the last almost decade, my wife and I live in Central Florida, in Orlando. We are both entertainers. I work at Universal City Walk as a dueling piano player, and my wife does the same thing at other establishments. But when I mentioned that I went to Podfest, which was a long trip, I was being sarcastic because we live in a suburb outside of Orlando. I do not live in Southern California anymore. So I just wanted to clarify that in case you thought that I was being serious about having a long trip to Orlando. I wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to you, every single one of you listeners to this podcast, as we have topped 300 downloads in our first 30 days. We also, with the help of our YouTube channel, had a bunch of shorts that were released, did a couple of shorts about parking lot traffic at the Super Bowl, and over this last weekend received over 2,000 views of those shorts. So thank you so much for sharing those with your friends and podcast listeners. And something exciting coming up in future episodes, more voices on this podcast than just me. I will be inviting folks to come on to chat about our experience as traffic reporters, those of my friends that have that experience, as well as regular everyday drivers and commuters like you to share their experiences. In the meantime, I invite you to hit that subscribe button on the app you're listening right now. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page and follow our Facebook page, both at Mastering the Commute, for daily content, traffic tips, and smart driving facts. If you have a topic you want to contribute or just some feedback for the podcast, please email me, freewaytrafficexpert@gmail.com. Next week, we're going to be talking all about lanes. Is the right lane the right lane? Or is the left lane the right lane? Find out next week. And until then, drive smart, drive safe, and I'll see you on the road.